But the next activity that we're going to introduce is the poop tower. I'm going to move it out a little bit so you can all see it. This is a really rough one. This was an old one that we replaced in the classroom a long time ago. And I just use it for training purposes. So hopefully the ones in your guys' classrooms, they do get roughed up. So even though the top cubes are very small and very light and can easily fit multiple in the hand, I always recommend to have them carry one cube at a time. Because when they start getting to the larger, heavier ones at the bottom, they're going to make a mess or drop one on their foot or somebody else's head if they are trying to carry multiple at the same time. So that's a big deal that I always make with kids at the beginning. A lot of classrooms, as you can see, this one's not even pink because it's been lost a long, long time ago. The small ones typically do get lost. So a lot of teachers will keep this not on the top of their tower. Sometimes there'll be like a little bowl or a tray or something up on the shelf where they can go and grab them, or even if there's like a bunch of younger kids, do you guys keep it out or is it kept up on top of the shelf?
They still ask.
They still ask for it? Yeah. Okay. So if you have really young kids and you're using this one, like the 2.5-year-olds especially, in the toddler classrooms, you typically won't use the smallest one, and I'll explain that one in just a minute. But you might even need to do that with the next smallest one.
Yeah, we have ours. We took our like first 3 blocks because every single time we've tried to like have them work with it, they've tried to stick it in their mouth, and I'm like too scared that if I walk away that they're just gonna like shove it in their mouth and choke on it. So I'm just gonna just put it up.
So when I say put it up, I don't mean like they don't work with it. We just mean that it's put up and they have to ask for it when they want to use it.
Yeah.
That way it doesn't get lost. So when you want to do this exercise, it might be one of those that you have to sit with the child.
Yeah, that's what we have to do. We don't do it with the like super younger ones, with the little ones, because they're just still kind of like they're just exploring the blocks kind of. So that's why like with the smallest block we don't try to like
yeah, they might not be quite ready to work.
Yeah, the older ones, if they are into it, yeah.
So you always make a big deal the first time you introduce it for how to carry them, and I typically will have it in my hand and cover the top with my other hand, and quietly and carefully carry it to the work mat. And sometimes that one's not the first one I get because it's not on top of my head. So I know that seems very tedious, but I promise you it is worth it to model that every time. I had to catch myself when I went in to borrow, I think, some of the red rods from the Choose room. I was about to like just pick them all up and carry them out, and the kids were looking at me and like, nope, I'm gonna bring my wagon in here and gonna set them in there one at a time. Because inevitably if you do it, they're gonna do it. And of course you're gonna have the child who can help you, so you want to model the first couple for them, and then they can help you bring the rest of them over. Or they can even bring all of them over while you sit and watch them, how nice they were doing. Which is a great way for them to practice. So first lesson for this is going to be just building the tower. It's a comparative activity, and it's very much visual, but you're using physical aspects as well to compare the sizes. And then I even like to get up and walk around the Pink Tower so you can really admire its beauty from all angles. It's a pretty cool structure, right? And then they can really take in how it builds. So obviously we're going from the largest to the smallest. We're not introducing that in the beginning, those concepts to them. But we want them to get a very concrete understanding of those differences by letting them explore it versus just telling them about it. So that's another concept that if you guys watch the video, you're going to hear about materialized abstractions. That's actually, if you're in the 3 to 6 class, that was the discussion question that you guys were asked to talk about. Does anyone want to share their thoughts on what a materialized abstraction is? Okay. What does it sound like? Just let's break down those 2 words. Materialized, abstraction.
The material that helps get across an abstract idea.
Exactly. You got it.
It's been a minute. It's on the tip of my tongue.
So what's the abstract concept that we are materializing?
Large and small.
Large and small. How is large and small an abstract concept? What makes it abstract? Seems pretty concrete to me right here. I can see that's large, I can see that's small. What about it makes it abstract though?
Control of fear.
Control of air. Comparison. So I'm saying that this is large and this is small, right? Well, what is this? Is this large or small?
Smaller than the largest.
Smaller than the largest, you're right. So that's why it's abstract, because there's not one universal rule for if this is large or small. This is only large or small compared to something else. It's small compared to this. It's very large compared to this. So anything that cannot be defined 100% on its own would be considered abstract, because it needs something to compare it to. And it talks about that in the video too, but there's no visual for it, so you're like hearing these concepts. So going back and listening to that section of the video would probably be helpful, because it'll help define in different ways the way that these things are abstract. So we'll talk about each of those abstractions as we go through the different materials. Okay, so hopefully that helps you guys understand materialized abstractions. So once you build it, you're going to break it down, and then you give the child an opportunity to build the tower. Would anyone like to build the tower?
Don't worry, I can feel it.
You can stand, if you need to stand up, that's fine.
I'll build it.
We'll build the tower.
When you're talking about like the blocks, do you say this is the biggest and the smallest and the smallest and the smallest?
In your lesson?
Yeah, like how do you talk about it?
You don't?
No.
Did I have any language in my lesson?
No. Okay. I don't know.
You introduce it later, though, right?
You do, yes.
Just not
Okay.
at first.
So this is where the isolation of difficulty and the isolation of concept come into play. So we're isolating the concept here because we're only really talking about large and small. But we're isolating the difficulty by only focusing.
That one.
We're only focusing on one component of this material at a time. The first component is building the tower, so we can get that understanding, that more subconscious understanding of what large and small is. Now, because if I try to build this tower backwards, is it going to build very well? Am I going to be able to keep, is that small block going to be able to, I mean, I can try numerous times. I mean, if I'm really good at it, I might be able to get it to stand, but I'm not going to be able to build it if my cubes are out of order. Also, even if you can build it, it's going to look very obvious that that's not correct once they've been shown the proper way that it stands. And in Children's House, this actually stands as a full tower by the shelf. so they can always see what that's supposed to look like. And so we're really just helping them develop their understanding of how the tower builds from the largest to the smallest. So it's a completely separate exercise to introduce the names, and we'll go over that in a little bit. So the other component here is that in our toddler classroom, we just like our cylinder blocks, we're only going to be doing 5. So how do I choose which of these 5 cubes I'm going to use?
One's really much different, like the biggest one and the smallest one.
Biggest one and the smallest one.
Isn't it like every other?
It is. So I'm going to show you an activity real quick, the control of air. I'm going to show you that activity because it is there's 2 parts of control of air for this material. There is the visual understanding of what it's supposed to look like. So it's not like a really clear defined control of air. It's just I can tell that something is wrong with this tower. There's no like defined right or wrong to this, but I can just tell that that does not look right. And so that's what the internal control of air in the child that you're trying to get them to. Now, toddlers are not going to have that immediately. It's going to take a lot of practice and work with the material to be able to identify this control of air. And then there's an actual activity for control of air. You build the tower, and then you corner the pieces. So you're going to bring each piece to the corner. And then the control of air is the smallest cube. Because the small guy can actually sit perfectly, which these cubes are terrible, so it's not like perfect. But on a newer set, you can see that this cube and this cube will equal the same width. And this cube can actually slide, and if my hands weren't so shaky because of all the caffeine I've had, this wouldn't be so bad. But then you actually show the child how they can slide the smallest cube on the ledge of every section. And that goes all the way down to the very last one. Little man on the ledge. Don't jump. Is it a short fall? Totally not appropriate, sorry. Just gonna be recorded forever.
Okay, we appreciate it.
Okay, so when you're working with toddlers, which they actually do sell toddler towers, but if you had a Children's House tower and you needed to modify it for the toddler classroom, then what you do is you separate it in half. So every other cube, put it into a different pile. And you're going to use the largest cube. You're going to use that set. Certainly they can't fit that cube in their mouth.
No, I'm thinking because I think we got mixed up or something. We had something like that.
Okay, yeah. This one I can see could be cause for concern, and I am okay in a toddler and a 1-year-old to use just these 4 because they can still get the visualization. They're missing the control of air though, because when you have these 5 cubes, then the smallest is still the control of air. And I'll show you that. Because he will still make up the difference in the thickness between all of the cubes. So you can do the exact same exercise with this. Little man on the ledge. And we'll talk a lot more when we get to the infant section, but our younger toddlers, really, when we're doing any sort of work with cubes or blocks, it's all about just building and exploring the concept of building and making towers and seeing what will fall and what won't fall. So there's a lot more exploration to it than the steps that we're going to be taking in these lessons.